Hello everyone, welcome to PCE Final Frontier podcast. I am Shivangi, your PCE guide at PCE Final Frontier, helping one student at a time. Visit our website www.pceff.com to enroll in our courses today. Hello everyone, welcome to PC Final Frontier content episode. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic. It's brachial plexus and peripheral nerve injuries. I know a lot of us have confusions, questions, and doubts related to this topic, but I will promise you that after listening to this podcast episode by Miss Sneha, who has a wonderful teaching skill where she breaks down the trunk and the branches and the cord of brachial plexus, followed by an interesting quiz and questions that will help you retain this information very well. So make sure you sit down with a piece of paper and pen and follow the steps as she walks you through the brachial plexus.
Hello, I am here today to talk about brachial plexus and peripheral nerve injuries caused by it to the upper extremity. At the end of the lecture, there is a small quiz that I encourage everyone to solve it and find the correct answers to those questions. And after that, even though if you get few questions wrong and you feel that you're not confident about the topic, you can email us. Okay, so now let's begin with brachial plexus. Brachial plexus is a complex topic. It becomes sometimes difficult to understand it and remember it. I am going to simplify the topic for you and you are going to learn this with me. Okay, so let's begin with the brachial plexus. We all know brachial plexus begins from C5 to T1. So your C5, C6 will come together and form the upper trunk of brachial plexus. Your C7 will form the middle trunk of the brachial plexus. And your C8 and T1 will come together and form the lower trunk of brachial plexus. Easy? Let's revise one more time. C5, C6, upper trunk. C7, middle trunk. C8, T1, lower trunk. Now each of this trunk will divide further into ventral and dorsal branches, or also known as anterior and posterior. These branches will come together and form the cords of brachial plexus, that is the lateral cord, middle cord, and the posterior cord of brachial plexus. Now, which nerve arises from which cord of brachial plexus? It is always difficult to remember the nerves arising from the different cord of brachial plexus and remembering the nerve root values. But it is that much important for us to know all these things. So, let's learn few mnemonics that will make it easy for you to remember the nerves arising from different cords of brachial plexus. So first, let's start with the lateral cord of brachial plexus. Now, to remember the nerves arising from the lateral cord of brachial plexus, I want you to remember Laila loves Majnu. Easy and funny too. On a piece of paper, I want you to write down Laila. Below it, write down loves. And the last, write down Majnu. So what does that stand for? That's your lateral pectoral nerve, lateral part of median nerve, and musculocutaneous nerve. Isn't it easy? Laila loves Majnu. Lateral pectoral nerve, lateral part of median nerve, and musculocutaneous nerve. So now we all know that musculocutaneous nerve arises from the lateral cord of brachial plexus. Let's proceed to the middle cord of the brachial plexus. Now, what happens with your medial cord of brachial plexus? For that, I want you to remember the mnemonic M for U. Okay? So on a piece of paper, I want you to write down 4 times M, one after another, and write down U at the end of the M. So, in the lateral cord, we saw it was the lateral pectoral nerve. So, in the medial cord, the first nerve we are going to write down is the medial pectoral nerve. The second nerve originating from the lateral cord was lateral part of median nerve. So, here we are going to write down medial part of the median nerve. Easy? Now, for the next 2 M, we are going to write down medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm. Easy? And your U is for your ulnar nerve. Easy to remember? Medial pectoral nerve, medial part of median nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, ulnar nerve. Let's proceed to the posterior cord of brachial plexus. Okay? So, the last nerve that was originating from the medial cord of brachial plexus was our ulnar nerve. So, that is our mnemonic for the posterior cord. Okay? So, the nerves arising from the posterior cord of brachial plexus are upper subscapular nerve, lower subscapular nerve, nerve to latissimus dorsi, axillary nerve, and radial nerve. Easy? So supposedly a patient has a difficulty while extending his elbow. Which muscle is responsible for the extension? Triceps. Triceps is supplied by radial nerve. Radial nerve originates from the posterior cord of brachial plexus. Similarly, let's take another example. Patient has difficulty with abduction of shoulder. Which muscle is responsible for shoulder abduction? Deltoid. Deltoid is supplied by axillary nerve. Axillary nerve originates from the posterior cord of brachial plexus. Easy? Now, whenever there is an injury at any level of the brachial plexus, that might be your branches or cords or individual nerve, your peripheral nerve injury results. Now, the injury can be due to different reasons. Okay, it can be due to compression, or it can be a trauma. So now, what happens with the peripheral nerve injuries? With the peripheral nerve injury, the latency increases and the nerve conduction velocity decreases. Right? You may find a motor loss or sensory loss. So now, what are the different types of nerve injuries that are occurring in your upper extremity? Before that, I want you to tell me which nerve arises from the ligament of Schroeter. Median nerve. Very good. Which nerve arises from the two heads of pronator teres? I want you to find out the answer for this. Which nerve arises from arcade of Faucher? Yes. Now let's proceed to a few common questions due to the peripheral nerve injuries. A patient is unable to do a hitchhike sign. Which nerve is injured? Posterior interosseous nerve. Very good. A patient is unable to do a OK sign with the tip to tip. Instead, he does with a pulp to pulp. Which nerve is injured? Anterior interosseous nerve. Very good. Patient has difficulty in extending a wrist. A patient has a wrist drop. Radial nerve. Okay. Partial claw hand with difficulty to extend the lateral the medial two fingers. Ulnar nerve. Very good. And if you still have any difficulty, please email us. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Neha. That was really great. I am pretty sure that this discussion has really helped us learn brachial plexus and the peripheral nerves related injuries very well. I'm going to hang this piece of paper that I just drew now while listening to you on my wall. Watch it every day to make sure my brachial plexus stays on top. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Till then, happy learning. Thank you for joining today. Reach out to us at support@pceff.com for any questions. Follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more content. Have a wonderful week and keep learning.